Is this a good standalone Scotch, or is it simply designed for blends? Well, that's what I'm about to find out, so let's do this. Welcome to Whisky Riffs. If you're new here, thank you for watching my videos, and I appreciate everyone that stops by. Today I have a Coastal Highland Scotch from Clynelish. It is a 14-year whiskey, and it is a bit different than the inner Highland whiskeys. It has more island notes, more coastal notes in it, according to other reviewers. I'm about to find that out when I pour it in a glass right now. The Clynelish is a 14-year-old whiskey. It is aged in ex-bourbon casks. It has a 46% ABV and is non-chill filtered. It also is probably a little colored since it's Diageo. There's some dispute about whether it has E150A in it, but if it does, it's such a slight amount and that shouldn't affect it in the least. I paid $80 for this at my local whiskey shop in San Francisco, and I thought that was a pretty good price for a 14-year whiskey. The Clynelish Distillery doesn't release a lot of expressions. This 14 year is the only one that I could see on their website, and I even switched the website to the UK site because sometimes you get a few different options when you're over in the UK. For this one, I just saw the 14-year. A lot of this is given over to the Johnnie Walker series, the gold expression from them, and that's because Diageo takes some of their brands and lumps them into that, like the Glenkinchie, which I've done a review on already, and I'll put a link to that below in the description, and the Cardew. That one also has a label of Johnnie Walker on it on the malts.com website, so it's one of their core brands for putting into their blends, and these blends require certain types of whiskeys. So this particular expression has been described on some of the other reviews as a little challenging. Now it may be that because it's a lightly peated single malt, much like the Glenmorangie 16, the tribute that I did a review on recently. They're meant to add certain flavors to blends. So if Johnnie Walker needs certain movement towards a certain direction, they will take different whiskeys and put them in there to try to move that blend in that direction. And there are several different types of Johnnie Walker expressions. In fact, if you are interested in hearing about the Johnnie Walker series, I am thinking of doing a video on those. I think I have 5 of their expressions picked out that I would like to do a review on. If that's of interest to you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Now, as I said, this is part of Diageo, and Diageo is a massive company with a lot of different alcohol brands and quite a few single malts and blended whiskeys, of course, because of Johnnie Walker, one of them. So the Clynelish Distillery is located on the coastal area of Scotland, northeast side. It's above Inverness, and it's near the town of Brora. This distillery was started in 1819, and then in 1931 it was actually closed due to the Depression. Then it was reopened again in 1938, but only lasted about 4 years before the war kind of struck it, and there was a barley restriction at that time, so it was closed down and then reopened again in 1945. Then a new distillery was built in 1968, and that's the distillery that Clynelish uses today. The old distillery was never taken down, it was never torn apart, and it was used in 1975 to create a peated malt for blends and for other purposes, and it was called Brora because that's the town that it's in. That brand is actually hotly desired. I mean, it's one of those cult following type whiskeys, and I didn't know much about it except I heard the name before, and I heard that you really can't get it. And then I looked online and saw that, well, you can get it. You just have to pay $2,500, $5,000, up to $23,000 for a bottle of this whiskey that was created during 1975 and around 1983 or so. So this very short period of time, but highly sought after. And there's even some rumors that a bit of that Brora whiskey is used in Clynelish. Well, there's been a lot of reviews out there, and I'm very curious what my opinion is of this particular whiskey. I like a little peat in my whiskey, so I'm not worried about that at all. And I do like that it's a 14-year-old whiskey. I like little age to my whiskey. And I do like the nose right away. Actually, on the first nosing, it kind of reminded me of Glenkinchie. And I can get a slight amount of smoke, a slight amount of peat there. And I'm getting like a spritz of orange. Got a pretty potent nose for 46% ABV. There are some nice sweet notes, but it's a very complex nose. It's malty, and there's that citrus edge, which is kind of an orange rind that does, if you just squeezed an orange rind into it, that's kind of what the glass smells like. And I'm getting a tiny bit of an apple note. There is a bit of a briny note to it. It's not very strong, but I really like the nose. It's a very pleasant nose. And it kind of suggests that this whiskey is going to be a little challenging. I will say right off the bat, it is a little challenging. It is one of those whiskeys where there's a spicy note and there's a little bit of a kind of a sour note right in the center of my palate. And the finish takes a while to start, but it does climb and it's there. It's drying. It's a very dry whiskey. It is making my tongue feel like the moisture's been pulled out of it, which may be the part that is challenging for some people. And I'm willing to give it a chance because even though I'm not getting a lot of fruitiness and sweetness to it, I do like some of the flavors I'm getting. I'm almost getting a peppermint on the nose after the taste. That is strange. I don't normally get that in Scotch. It's a refreshing note, I guess, is what I'd say. After a couple tastes, I'm getting more heat on the back end of it, and there is a seaside edge to it. I can definitely taste that. It's overpowering any kind of sweetness or fruit flavors. I guess if you're not looking for a sweet whiskey, this is more in that category. I'm intrigued by the flavors. I think I'm gonna have to spend more time with this. This is not a simple whiskey just to pull flavors out of. But I can see why it would be a good whiskey to add to a Johnnie Walker, because there is that rougher edge to it. There is that brininess and that little bit of smoke and peat that would give their blends an edge. And I think I'll need a little bit of water in this to see if I can open it up some more. I think it works well with water. There is some evidence online from other reviews that it did well with a bit of added water. Wow, that changed the nose a lot. It's kind of a waxy nose now. Like someone lit an aroma candle for me. Okay, wow. Yeah, that's sweeter, but it's a candle flower sweet note, not a fruit sweet note. I'm actually getting less of the citrus note on it right now. Very interesting. I'm getting some dark chocolate now in the finish, vegetable notes, and that oak spice is even a little more intense, and a little bit of that sour edge still. That's very different from what I was expecting. I wasn't thinking the whiskey was going to go that direction. Kind of glad it did, because I'd rather have it go somewhere than nowhere when I add water. The nose gets softer. There's not as much smoke and peat, but the taste still gets hotter. So every time I add a little bit of water, it's ramping up the spice. It's making it more sour. I don't know if I'm in love with it yet. And that's okay. It's the first pour out of the bottle. There's no expectations that you have to love a whiskey on your first taste. And I definitely don't love this whiskey on my first taste. It's not one of the ones that I immediately stamp as, oh, this thing is being replaced as soon as possible. The flip side of that is, I don't know how available this is around the country or around the world. If you have access to the Clynelish, I'd like to hear about that in the comments and what kind of prices that you have around you for it. Like I said, I did find this in the whiskey shop in San Francisco, but that is well known for having a great stock of Scotch whiskeys and whiskeys that I don't normally see. And I think when I went in there to pick up whatever I was picking up, this one showed up on the list as one of their, that's a really good one, you should try that. And which, you know, if you can find a whiskey shop around you that can give you recommendations and based on what you've bought in the past or what you've liked, that's certainly a fantastic resource. Do seek those out if you can. So what's my recommendation on this? You know, I'd like to put a pin in that. I'm not going to say do or don't buy this one. I think this is for a specific crowd that wants a less sweet whiskey, something that has some age to it, something that has a lot of interesting spicy oak flavors, and that hint of peat really does set it off. And of course, so does the brininess and more of the coastal flavors, but it's definitely not a no, because as I've said before, it's an interesting whiskey. I think I could spend some time with this and find more notes and more flavors. And the first tasting is just a little less exciting than I want it to be, but I'm not about to write it off yet. And if this is an expression that you enjoy, that you regularly go to, I'd love to hear about that in the comments too, because I want to know what your take on it is. What are your notes, and why do you like the Clynelish 14? Well, this is definitely a dram that I'm going to spend some time with at night, that I'm going to work my way through, figure out what I like and don't like about it, and maybe throw some more notes up in the comments. So until the next video, take care of yourself, take care of those people around you, and cheers. Today I have a scotch from Clynelish, We're going to do that over now.